Sharon saved her supply chain from cyber risk and ended the office goat debate.
And it's time now for our Wall Street Week conversation. And today, we're focusing on the uptick of Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Here to talk about the implications for the shipping industry is Brandon Daniels. He is the CEO of Exiger, along with Wall Street Week's David Weston. David, take it away.
Thank you so much, Katie. So, Brandon, welcome back. Good to have you. We check in on you about the supply chain from time to time. We did see some reports that things are heating up again in the Red Sea, maybe with some worse weaponry with the Houthi rebels. What's going on over there?
Absolutely. Well, it's good to see you again, David. Thank you for having me on. Things are heating up, and they've been heating up for the last couple of months. The attacks have become more persistent. The danger that had gone through some period of lull has peaked again. And what you're seeing is, like you're seeing across the world, you're seeing it in the Russia-Ukraine war. You're seeing it in some of the activity that's going on in the Middle East today. You're seeing increased use of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones being used in attacks. That is the state of modern warfare. We're seeing increased EW, and that also means that terrorist groups, that smaller rebel groups, that that traditional attacks would be planned with technology which was more expensive, harder to come by. It can now be done utilizing commodity drones, commodity materials, and so it's making it much more dangerous for us. And that's increasing pressure on the Red Sea. That's increasing pressure on prices. It's increasing pressure on other ports, and it's starting to actually impact our global commodity prices.
So, Brandon, talk about that pressure in the Red Sea. What effect is it having on shipping? To what extent can you quantify how much less shipping is going through the Red Sea, and if not through the Red Sea, how's it going around?
Well, the Red Sea, that core artery of our global shipping backbone, it accounts for about 30% of our global shipping and commerce. And so when you think about the amount that it's decreased decreased by almost 80% in terms of total volumes. That means our global shipping capacity has reduced by 20%. And that means that more of the ships have to go around Africa. And that means more port of calls in other parts of the world are getting more and more strained. You're seeing upticks, significant upticks in Singapore in terms of port congestion. You're seeing rates as high as 60% of peaks of 60% higher levels of port congestion in Singapore. You're seeing ports like the port of Shanghai and other Chinese ports also dealing with constraint. And you're seeing this also in the prices of shipping. So when you look at the rates of global shipping, you're seeing a 2.5 to 3 times spike in global pricing for shipping. But if you look at specifically from Asia to Europe, you're seeing a 5x spike in global shipping prices and global freight prices. Right. So you're seeing this compound and actually impact core inflation. There are some estimates that it's impacting core inflation as much as 0.5% today.
So, Brandon, Asia is exactly where I wanted to go, in the South China Sea. There are a lot of reports pretty much every day now about some altercation over the South China Sea. What effect is that having on shipping over there? Because South China Sea, if I'm not mistaken, is actually even more shipping than Red Sea.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Red Sea is obviously a core artery. But the South China Sea has 2 key aspects that are important. One, it's a core area for shipping some of our most technologically advanced goods and some of our most in-demand goods. So consumer electronics, which especially as we start to get into the holidays will start to ramp in terms of demand. Consumer electronics are largely coming out of the South China Sea. Major systems that are necessary for the automotive industry to function, like chips and EVs, those are coming out of the South China Sea. And as you see the tensions start to heat up and potential issues start to heat up around Taiwan and around, China's potential incursion into Taiwan, there are growing concerns that a shut-off to that area could cripple the global supply chain, not just increase prices, but literally stop commerce and trade for long periods of time and force us to reform and remap our supply chains globally. Also, as we've seen, as the Red Sea ports have come offline, as those shipping lines have come offline, it has increased strain in those ports in the South China Sea. We're also seeing Malaysia, in addition to Singapore and China, we're seeing Malaysia taking on higher port congestion, higher volumes of goods sitting and waiting. You're seeing large-scale transshipment lines, essentially dumping goods at these big ports, and then those sitting in holding vessels or in warehouses for longer periods of time. And so overall, this is having a much more systemic and much more concerning impact on our global supply chains and on our global prices.
Brandon, last one. You've identified problems in the Red Sea and the South China Sea. Is there anything we, and by we I mean the United States with our allies, should be doing to relieve some of the pressure?
The biggest thing that we're doing right now is we are redesigning our supply chains, and we're localizing some of our goods manufacturing. I mean, you've seen a huge shift to Mexico. I mean, you've seen a 5x increase in commerce between the United States and Mexico. And that's because we are essentially de-risking our global supply chain and the modes and methods in which we get goods from these global logistics issues. And so that is one big area, is the reform or the redesign, remapping of our supply chain. The second thing is innovation in our supply chain, rethinking the way that we actually create, manufacture, or even source raw materials for goods. That's another area that the United States is focused on in terms of de-risking the supply chain.
Brandon, it's always really helpful to have you on these supply chain issues. That's Brandon Daniels of Exiger. He's the CEO there.